In 2022, a crack Spurg unit was sent to sensory-friendly prison by the court of public opinion for a crime they probably did. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security gay baby jail to the podcasting underground. Today, still wanted by Autism Speaks, they survive as gamers of fortune. If you have a problem, if someone else can help but doesn't want to, and with the right bribe, maybe you can hire the Autismo team. All right, welcome back to the Team Autismo podcast. This is episode 2. If you're coming in from episode 1, just know it's been several years since we last recorded, so a lot has changed. We're doing a bit of a soft reboot now, and we're going to kind of reintroduce ourselves briefly and kind of discuss where our life is taking us since we last recorded, like back in, was it 2020 or something?
Yeah,
it was a while ago.
So I'm Mike. A lot's changed for me. I have not working anymore. I'm actually pretty sure I'm getting SSDI. So lots have changed. Been doing a lot of volunteering to fill up my time, and that's really it. And I've been doing a class, which is what we're going to be discussing primarily. So, Lyric, you want to give any updates?
Yeah, I've changed my job. I've gone from a job at a hospital to a job at an Amazon factory.
Mm-hmm.
Bezos, if you're listening to this, don't fire me. I love working at Amazon.
Best job ever.
Best job ever. Aspiring creative, writing, drawing. I'm not good at it, but I'm trying, and that's what counts.
Yeah. All right, Dan, what you got? Anything new going on?
Not a whole lot has changed with me. Well, some stuff has that we'll get to later in the podcast. I kind of have a new obsession now. I like collecting old TVs and monitors. Unfortunately, they take up a lot of space, but as my two friends can attest, I've become pretty obsessed with them. And about,
I mean, what aren't you obsessed with?
Yeah, that is true. And I really doubt, you know how I had on the site that a dream of mine was seeing the Russian Knights perform? I highly doubt that's going to be happening now, but that will be possible even, but yeah.
That's kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
It's more of a pipe dream now than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Gosh darn.
Geopolitics getting in the way of
I know.
Dan watching his airplanes.
I'm shaking my fist right now as you say that. I doubt there'll be any Su-35s left at this rate, but yeah.
So today we're going to discuss a case study from a class I've been taking called LEND. It's L-E-N-D. It's an acronym, of course. And let me pull up. I always forget what it stands for. Leadership, Education, and Neurodevelopmental Disorders. So it's kind of what it sounds like. It's interdisciplinary leadership training. So there's like undergraduates, graduates, and postdoctorates. Every medical thing you can think of: audiology, nursing, occupational therapy, psychology, social workers. There's some people from the education field. I think my group has a nurse, and I forget what the other girl is now, actually. And the fourth group member we have, which has never shown up to class, is a music therapist. So it's unfortunate he never came, because I wanted to talk to him about what he does, because that sounds cool.
Oh, that does sound cool. Music therapist.
Yeah, and he looks like a musician too, so I'm like,
Oh,
sure, this guy plays guitar.
Do you think that would be therapy via music, as in playing it, or music via actually performing music?
I don't know. See, that's what I want to ask him about.
yeah.
But yeah, we so what we do in the class is we have case studies about individuals with IDD, that is intellectual and developmental disabilities. And it's kind of just telling their story and how things happen in the real world and how, people around fix those problems and, different ways we can help represent, those people, which in our case is us. And that's what I'm there as a self-advocate. I'm kind of there as the token autistic, I guess, which I am happy to do.
It's for a good cause.
It is for a good cause. It really is. It's been interesting. It's kind of opened my eyes a lot to a lot of stuff about all the, everyone's all up in arms about injustice nowadays. And I'm like, okay, but what about these people over here no one's talking about, and there's actual injustices happening? We'll try not
enough awareness of it.
Yeah, there's it's getting better, but it's like still highly ignored in a lot of places, and it's unfortunate because I feel like that's like what society is made to do, is to take care of people that can't take care of themselves.
Yeah.
And we're just absolutely failing.
I think it would be a fair assessment to say that a big reason as to why it's ignored is because it is still poorly understood.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there have been leaps and bounds in the field of autism research, but even to this day, it's not something that you can have a distinct characterization on, to the point where you can have a treatment that will always work.
Right. It's a spectrum for a reason. It's very broad.
So many people don't understand anyway. They think autism is either banging your head on the desk, or they think it's just being slightly quirky, or they go, oh, Isaac Newton was autistic, why aren't you curing cancer? God, I hate that people say that so much.
And the problem is, it's a lot of professionals are like completely misunderstand autism too. I actually met a lady at a function not long ago. I'm not going to say where she worked, but it was a very prominent place.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how like autistic people don't have any empathy and don't, see anything outside of themselves. I was like, I had to rebuke her. I was like, excuse me, as an autistic person, we are some of the most empathetic people on the planet. We've just been told so many times that we can't be empathetic, so that it gets repressed.
Yeah.
I mean, among other things.
Yeah, among other things, but we express it differently, for one thing. And it's the outward expression of things that bothers people. So we don't express things outwardly either in the same way or at all. And that's where people get tripped up.
Yeah.
So I have an outline here that I have not been following. Okay.
It's fine. We all expected it.
Yep. That's why we made the outline, and I still follow it. All right. So we got our reintroductions done. So overview of Lind. I've kind of started on that. We just kind of talk about case studies.
Hang on. We need to pause it 1 second. I'm sorry.
All right.
You are listening to the Team Autismo podcast, the top supplier of weapons-grade autism in the Western Hemisphere. If somehow after this, your sick thirst for neurodivergence still isn't sated, you can catch me over at twitch.tv/harmfulopinions.
Okay, yeah, and part of the Lind class, we kind of talk about people across the lifespan, and we've gone over so many case studies, and today I picked one on a fella named Davis. Now, these names in certain situations have been changed to make these people anonymous. But this is a real case. Some of the cases we went over were made up, but this one was an actual person. But it's gone through the things to make it HIPAA compliant. So, you know, we're not giving away any
Always.
personally identifiable information here.
Resonated a lot with me, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I mean, almost most of the cases we went over resonated with me, especially any autistic clients. So that's what this is. Davis is a 7-year-old boy with autism.
In the public schools.
He's in the public school system, high income family. So it doesn't say how high income, because some people think certain incomes are high when they're not really.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that exactly means.
I'm going to assume they're fairly comfortable in this current economy.
Right. Because, you know, growing up, I was, you know, probably middle class.
Same.
Some people thought we were, like, friggin' rich. And, like, no, we were not filthy rich, but we're well off. Right, so it's a... Anyways. Tangenting.
Yeah.
As always.
It was a... sounds like a quite diverse socioeconomic school. And his mother has...
fibromyalgia.
Yep, fibromyalgia and some PTSD from... I don't think it ever even says what from specifically, but
No,
It doesn't specify what the PTSD is from, but
yeah, it's just mental. You know, the mom has mental issues, so you know, dad's having to really step up a lot. Davis has an IQ in the superior range, performs above grade level in all academic areas. That reminded me of myself. I'm not trying to sound like tooting my
I'm not trying to brag.
I'm honestly not trying to brag, but I've always overperformed on tests.
Yeah.
And that sets up false expectations for the future. Not just
Got
for
all the STDs.
wrong kind of testing.
Yeah.
But you know, people are like, oh, he's doing great in school. He's got a future ahead of him. No, I didn't.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
Never heard that before in my entire life.
School learning does not always correlate to success in the real world.
No.
Which is one thing I discussed while we were in class. I was like, you know, this really reminded me of myself. So the case says he has an IEP, which
What is that? Individualized education plan?
that's right. It's meant for people with intellectual developmental disabilities to kind of give them a more personalized plan for education, something that's it's supposed to, notice I use my words carefully, it's supposed to give you a better shot at being able to do well in school.
When I was growing up, I feel like stuff like that was woefully inadequate.
For sure, mine was too. Like, I think all I got was extra time on tests, which is like the one thing I didn't need.
Yeah.
I was always one of the first people finished. If I either finished within like a couple minutes, or I didn't even start.
Yeah.
So,
You guys got help?
yeah.
I think the only time I actively got help was when I was in elementary school. And then when I went to middle school, I had my dad around, so he would like watch over me to make sure I was okay. But I didn't get like, people just assumed, oh, he's kind of weird, but he's a good kid. He makes good grades. He'll do well. Blah blah blah. And then when I went to high school, stuff just went really badly, and I didn't have anybody for help, and people were just really, even teachers were crappy to me. And
that's the thing, when you had the supports you needed, you did pretty well. And that's what we're going to get into in this case. So Davis's case, he was starting to exhibit challenging behaviors. His teacher went on maternity leave and was replaced by someone who's unfamiliar with autism.
yeah,
Didn't say she or he. So this teacher, I'm guessing that's one of the things to prevent PII coming out.
That means personally identifiable information.
This teacher tended to lack structure, was often inflexible, didn't understand his learning style. And because of that, of course, he's started exhibiting challenging behaviors,
Yeah.
including aggressing towards others.
Yeah, especially as parents and
Mhm.
just acting violently.
And over time, it began to manifest in the home environment, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a common occurrence.
Oh yes, shockingly common. And I mean, this might be a good time to tangent off to something I put in the outline. Is that one thing I've learned from this class and from I forgot to mention this in my intro. I'm not just volunteering at places. I've been on several advisory boards recently, so I'm kind of in the field indirectly. Like, these are volunteer positions, but I'm indirectly involved in the field of intellectual developmental disability, mental health stuff.
Yeah.
So I've
For his meals.
yeah, absolutely. Even though they're well, I mean, they do provide lunch, so in a way,
Was it good lunch?
actually, yeah, there's a good brewery nearby that I get a nice salad usually, because I'm trying to watch my calories.
Yeah.
But yeah, and part of that is I'm learning a whole lot because the people I'm working with are among the best. And sometimes when I'm at those meetings, I'm like, I don't need to be here. Y'all got this. Like, what am I doing here? But it's an exciting opportunity for me. And one thing I've learned from them is a bit of a mantra, which is behavior is communication. One of the problems in developmental disability care is that people try to treat the behaviors. Like, oh, he's acting hyper, so let's drug him up to make him less hyper. Well, it doesn't
Instead
really
of treating the symptoms. Yeah, that's treating the symptoms rather than the source.
Exactly. Yeah. So many people. Like I'm not gonna give any names, but I was talking to somebody that for a long time has had problems with their kids, and they mentioned all these things that they wanted to do and they were getting distracted from school. And I said, well, that's a symptom. You want to deal with like the root cause, and of course I got ignored. But yeah,
and that's the thing is the behaviors are always some form of communication. You know, one of the big factors in autism is difficulty with communication and expressive language. So if you can't talk about, you know, what's going on, or you can't say, I need more structure, I need more rules and boundaries, then you're going to act out.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to manifest positively.
Right. You're that's just how it's going to be. And that's I feel like that's one of the big takeaways from this case. So back to the case, he was starting to aggress towards family members, school professionals, verbal threats, slamming doors, kicking, hitting his parents and stuff.
Yeah. Well, he would warn them before he would say, I feel like I'm going to do something violent or something like that. Then he would at least tell them ahead of time when he felt like he was getting into that range of emotion.
And I love this part of the case study right up. When Davis is not upset, he presents as a precocious but very sweet and likable young man. I'm like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of the IEP notes I read.
Yeah.
When from my childhood, like, he presents as very likable or whatever. I'm like, yeah, that's a coping mechanism. We can get into that if you want. People-pleasing coping skills. It's very common with autistic folks. So he had some somatic complaints, so physical complaints,
Stomach ache and I had those problems too.
I still do. So,
Manifestations of an anxiety disorder.
Yep. I've been getting that a lot recently. That's
Another thing quite common amongst autistic people.
Oh, very common. It's one of the biggest co-occurring conditions. And I mean, a little bit about why it's taken so long for us to get back to this is, the past year or two, I've been in such a horrible state with my anxiety that like I just can't.
It's been very trying.
Yeah.
It has, but I'm back on the horse now, and I'm enjoying it.
That's great.
Is the horse enjoying it?
That's not
Yeah.
important.
It better.
Better act like it. So they the parents started having him see some specialists, and this is one thing that bothered me in the case, and I brought up in class, that the parents indicated that Davis was not aware of his autism diagnosis. They stated that they were reluctant to disclose it to him for fear it would increase his anxiety or give him an excuse for his behaviors.
Oh, my parents did that to me when I was growing up.
I kind of understand that in a way, that you're afraid like, oh, this is going to give him an excuse.
Yeah.
But from every self-advocate I've spoken to and read about or listened to, I've never heard of that happening. I'm not saying you can't, but I've never heard of that happening.
I suppose it depends on how you quantify an excuse.
Right, and it also depends on how you present it to them. Most of what happens is it becomes a aha moment for a lot of people.
Suddenly this all makes sense.
Yeah, you've always felt different from your peers.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable making a blanket statement like that. If you're on the autism spectrum, you've always felt weird or different or ostracized.
Like an alien.
Like an alien.
Well, it is alienating. Your mere existence is a difference, a barrier put between you and other people outside of your control.
And it's stressful because there's no, you grow up thinking, oh, I'm like just wrong. There's something wrong with me, right?
Oh, it's a weirdo, I'm wrong. People hate me because...
Yeah.
And then when you get your diagnosis disclosed to you, it's like, you're not wrong. You're just built different. Like, I know that's a meme, but literally you're built different.
I remember it was such a big moment for me when I finally got officially diagnosed, because before then my entire life people would say, oh, you're just lazy, you can't listen to directions, you're just being difficult, and it really hurt my self-esteem a lot.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you still get that kind of talk from certain people.
I still do, yeah.
We all do.
The ones that don't understand.
Yeah, that's okay.
Or the ones that choose not to understand.
More and more that's becoming the case because there are so many self-advocates out there doing a great job.
Yeah.
But anyway, so parents didn't disclose to him. That's one thing. I don't remember if I said this, but when we were discussing class, that's one thing I harped on a bit. Is like they really should have, especially considering he was, earlier in the case it said he's a high IQ. He can understand it. I understand if the individual has severe, profound intellectual disability, where if you explained it to them, they might not even understand it. At that point, there's not a whole lot of point. Just let them live their life, right? But in Davis's case, he's highly intelligent. He's able to understand it and work his way through it, and you can always have him talk to counselors, and they can help him work through it.
And if the thought process of it potentially becoming an excuse is forefront in their mind, well, it's your responsibility as the parents to curtail that potential behavior.
Yeah,
exactly.
Don't expect it to happen. Don't fearmonger that it's going to happen, but prepare for the chance that it could.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, further into the case, they were seeing, they were at the CIDD, according to the case. I don't know if they actually were or not. I don't know which parts of this were changed and which ones weren't. But the CIDD is the Carolina Institute for Developmental Disabilities. It's what it says on the tin, right? It's an institute for developmental disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Not institution. I just realized some people might confuse those two words. By institute, it means it's like it's a doctor's office, really, but with a whole lot of specialists and multidisciplinary people. It's a really awesome place. I almost got seen there once, but then I forgot about my appointment. I'm serious. This is back when I was working in IT.
Classic Mike.
Yeah, this is back when I was working in IT, and I was just plugging away at work, and I had the notification pop up like, "Oh, you have a CIDD appointment in like 15 minutes." I was like, "I'm an hour
So
away."
that's what I was doing today.
I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm supposed to already be there. It's very difficult to get an appointment there, so I've never gotten another one, which if I tried to, I probably could, but I'm like, of course, now I know all the people there, so it'd probably be way easier for me to get an appointment because I could just talk to them after class. But it's a really cool place. I've enjoyed working with them immensely. Very professional people. And Davis's parents worked with them to work on some behavior management stuff. So increased structure, visual supports, consistent routines, consistent reward system. You're noticing a trend here, consistency, and training on flexibility. It doesn't go into what that might be. I'm thinking probably some sort of dialectical behavioral therapy.
Oh yeah,
or DBT, which
I've gone through that before.
I'm a big fan of.
Right.
It also doesn't specify whether that is teaching him to be flexible or if it's adding flexibility to the routine for him.
Or maybe it's stretching before a meal or before heavy exercise. It's stretching. I'm kidding, obviously.
Wasn't sure.
I'll be honest, it took me a second to catch on to what you were going with.
I was
that
doing
one.
the deadpan thing to see how long y'all caught on.
So wait, is he messing with us right now?
You can
The answer is yes.
you can bet pretty easily on yes.
That's your bottom.
According to the case, his aggressive behavior is almost completely stopped. Here's where it gets fun.
Yeah.
His behavioral improvement was so much that the school was like, well, he no longer requires these supports because he's improved.
That made me really angry when I read that.
Yeah, me too, and everyone else in the class. Which
That's
is
not how you go about it.
no, he's not fixed.
No.
He finally has the supports he needs, and that's why he's doing better.
Why is
Now
he
they're
good?
like, okay, well, he doesn't need him anymore, right?
You don't get better, even if you're like bipolar or borderline. You never get better. You just learn how to deal with it.
Deal with it better.
Yeah.
You just learn better coping skills, and the problem never goes away, but the way you handle it changes.
Yeah.
And it's like a course of medicine. You don't stop the course of medicine simply because you feel better. You take it to its conclusion to make sure you're better. And this is a condition where there is no hard conclusion. So
Yeah.
you keep going so long as it works. And if it stops working, you find a different solution.
Yeah.
And
I'm in a similar situation too. That's why I reacted strongly to what I read because till like for the past 7 years I've been on SSI and I've gone through like a lot of stuff. I've been hospitalized multiple times. Last time being in late 2017, but Social Security, I guess, decided because most recently I've been more stable that, he doesn't need aid, and I'm having to get an appeal and get like all this documentation just so I don't get the rug pulled from underneath me. They just think, we can take away his meds, his therapy, and it's just no, and it's terrifying. That's been the worst thing that's happened to me in a long time. I've had to get multiple people to give me recommendation letters to send to Social Security. It's been very, very stressful. I've been obsessed with it, as my friends can attest.
yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be? I've been obsessed with it even because it's such a ridiculous scenario. It's like, you're coping a little bit better. Behavioral issues have subsided a bit. guess you don't need support anymore. Like,
Yeah, I
wait,
think-
maybe that's why I'm doing better, and then you're just gonna take it?
Yeah, that's what I wouldn't be able to afford all the medications I take because it's not just autism, it's other stuff, and they just want to completely cut me off. And I hope that stuff works out, but yeah,
It'll work out one way or another, because if we have to call in the big dogs, we can. I don't
Yeah.
want to get into that because that's always
Yeah.
a mess. But I'll just say for the record, I know people.
yeah, he does.
We'll
knows
figure
people.
it out. We'll get you sorted out one way or another.
Might make some people disappear in the process. No, I'm just kidding.
Get some concrete shoes. The DSW special.
That's not a threat. We're just joking. Someone's gonna listen and think we're serious, and
No, that is probably a joke.
yeah.
Um,
No, they're autistic.
They can't joke. They don't
They're
understand.
serious. Yeah, they don't have empathy.
I have heard people say that autistic people don't have a sense of humor. I'm like,
Yeah.
serious?
Have
bro?
you met anyone that's autistic?
Right. Like, obviously not. You've met one, and then you're like, oh, that's everybody.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens. It's like, oh, that's another thing a lot of people hear is like, oh, my cousin's autistic, and you're nothing like him.
Oh God, I've been told that so many times.
Yep. And I mean, I have I don't know if he'd be a cousin. Family tree stuff confuses the crap out of me.
Yeah.
But a distant relative that's, very severely autistic and with a lot of behavioral issues. And I'm sure if people met him and met me, and they'd be like, he's autistic, but you're not. Well, according to actual experts, I am. Consider how many autism experts I talk to on a weekly basis, and none of them have questioned my diagnosis. I think I'm pretty secure in it.
Definitely autistic.
100%
Autism to the max.
maximum.
Like I saw
Maximum
some
overtism.
I saw some Twitter tag a long time with it was like really really autistic. Your hashtag definitely autistic.
Oh my gosh, they're doing even more. I remember the first one was actually autistic.
No, that's I got confused. It was actually autistic.
Oh, yeah.
That-
I've used that hashtag a few times,
Hashtag megatism.
just because, like, one of the reasons I want to do this whole podcast thing, and one of the reasons I do all the advocacy work, I guess it is advocacy work, that I do, is because, and all three of us, I feel like are in this situation. For someone on the spectrum, we are very good at communicating,
Yeah.
and we're pretty good at getting our thoughts across. Some of us a little more eloquently than others, but we can
Thank you.
get it across. I like how you instantly knew I was talking about you.
Obviously, you were talking about me. I mean, do you hear this accent?
We were talking about accents today at my volunteer thing, but I feel like a lot of people on the spectrum are basically unable to communicate outwardly in any way that a lot of people can understand.
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of have a duty. Y'all can decide to join along with me in this if you want, but I feel like I have a duty to speak for those people to a degree, and say like, hey, I promise you there's thoughts in that head. They just have a hard time expressing them. They definitely understand everything you're saying. It's just the outward expression is...
Just because they can't tell you themselves doesn't mean they're not thinking.
One cool thing is there are a lot more, what are they called? AACs? I can't remember what they're called. But they're devices people can use to communicate, and it's like a touch screen. You can hit the different buttons and you can form a sentence. And it's a lot easier for certain people to be able to communicate.
Oh, a text-to-speech.
Kind of. Some of them are picture-based. And I think that's really cool that that's a thing now. So, back to Davis's case. Let's see. Where was I? I was over here. Okay. The teachers apparently argued that while our boy Davis has a medical diagnosis of ASD. His symptoms were likely not severe enough to qualify him for school-based services. So here's what I want to say, and this goes for Dan's scenario as well. What kind of message does that?
Yeah, that sends a horrible message. Like, what am I supposed to? I can't will. I don't want to. I'm not going to, but I can't just will myself to suddenly. Well, I'll tell you what will make me worse: pulling away all my treatment and medicine and
Right.
therapy. That will make me worse. But so I'm going to be penalized for being stable.
Yep. Yeah, it's like, and in Davis's case, it's like your symptoms aren't severe enough. So what? You want me to go back to hitting and screaming at people?
I think I know exactly what the problem is here. Why the teachers want to cease his care. It's probably I said this before when I first saw it. I really believe that Davis, quote unquote Davis, should be going to a private school because a lot of even like maybe a charter school, they offer more one-on-one resources. And what I've seen, maybe not like every private school, but they're smaller, so they can devote more time and more focus to an individual student. Whereas a public school, we don't know how huge the school may be, and that the teachers probably have. I'm not taking up for them being negligent, but they may just be completely swamped with other people with different problems too, and they don't want to work as much. I don't know.
Right, and there's usually fewer resources in the public school because they are spread out so much thinner. And the decision between going to a private school and going to a public school is difficult for a lot of parents because it is so nuanced, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you consider that some private schools can kind of basically do what they want. They aren't required to have any sort of IEP curriculum. They're not required to have any.
That is true.
Special needs training. I don't really like that term, but that's kind of what people use. They're not required to have those things. So, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's possible the public schools in your area just don't have anything.
Yeah, I guess when I read the scenarios, I think of myself. Private schools are smaller and I still am this way. I don't like most places with a ton of people. Like, school always made me really nervous, especially high school. So a private school would have been ideal for me because it would have been smaller and less intimidating. But I don't know, like, a lot of stuff in this case, and I can't apply everything how it was for me to this case right here.
Yeah, and it sounds like they probably could have had the resources to send them to a private school if they chose. That's the difficulty with this case. We don't have all the information.
I
but
just know they're high income, so I.
And again, what constitutes high income?
Sure.
Right. Because some public schools, or some private schools rather, are
absurdly expensive.
Ludicrously expensive. Like,
Yeah.
y'all don't need that much money. For me, you're just doing that because you can. The prestige of the name, which is so stupid. A degree from Harvard is just as good as a degree from Cape Fear Community College, if you ask me. So let's see. Yeah, I said even though he has a medical diagnosis, his symptoms are not likely severe enough. Well, thankfully, Davis's mom and pop were aware of his legal rights, which I think at some point we should do episodes on those. Even though that gets quite complicated, I feel like we can handle it.
Oh god, that means I have to do research on the British system.
Yep, I was gonna say that. We'll do both sides of the pond.
Oh god.
So there's several acts I know of in the U.S. This one, in this case, is the IDEA Act. So they knew his rights and began to advocate for him. And I'm sure it took a while, several meetings, is what the case says. They were able to reach a compromise. Let's see. unable to reach a compromise. Sorry. So they actually started suing the school.
Oh.
Litigation, that's what that means. Litigation to resolve the IEP dispute. I think this is the first or second case we did where parents had to get legal stuff involved with schools to get the assistance they needed, which is so ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about, these cases where it's, little kids. I think the case says he's 7. I don't know at what age he is at this point in the case, but he's in friggin' elementary school, right?
I think it's just gross that the school just so badly wants to cease care that they're. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even if their situation were understandable, again, we don't know what the exact situation is. That doesn't give them the right to simply give up because it's easier for them.
Yeah. And
Right.
At the end of the day, their job is to make sure the children are looked after properly.
Mm-hmm. And that's their, like I said, that's their what's the word? Responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. That's why.
Responsibility, prerogative.
Yeah, that's why you're there.
Prerogative work in that scenario.
Prerogative, it does. I believe so. If it doesn't, it sounds good. So we'll keep it. It's so as of when this case was written, it's still currently pending. Let's see.
An exclusive right or privilege. I suppose you do have to be in a privileged or righted position to be a teacher, so
Yeah, that works. So the family has requested assistance from the CIDD team to help for advocating. But that consultation was not solicited from school personnel, which is not terribly surprising. So each of these case studies came with questions that we ended up talking about on. That actually reminds me I need to submit my answers for this week. Anyways, I still haven't done it. I usually do it this Saturday. It's uploaded, but I haven't done it. So we do forum discussions on questions based on the case. And let me see if there's a question we might might have the propensity to answer for this, because some of the questions I can't answer because it's based on like working in a field, like what community services are available. I don't know. How can you justify the ongoing need? I don't know. I don't work in this stuff. I kind of just go with my gut, I guess, most of the time.
I do that too.
Let's see. Oh yeah, this is where I really identified with them. One of the questions is, what can school systems do when a child's behavioral difficulties interfere with their academic performance, and how might this be complicated by twice exceptionality? Twice exceptionality is something I had to ask the class, like, what is that? Most people didn't actually know.
I don't believe I'm aware of that either.
I don't either.
It's a really goofy term, I think, but it's basically, how a student is called exceptional when they're either cognitively impaired or when they do very well in school. It's exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
So twice exceptional means you have a developmental disability with a high IQ.
Oh.
So I was like, oh crap, that was me going through school.
Yeah.
And so I actually had a lot to say about that once I knew what it was. How academic performance can be complicated by that. And it's one of the things I really want to touch on is how people just look on the outside a lot, and they see the external and just think, well, that's it. That's the end of the story. And it never is. Never.
They don't see what's happening below the surface.
Right. And I mean, fair, how could you? But at the same time,
You could at least ask.
you can at least ask, you can at least anticipate, give some grace and be like, well, this person's behaving this way, like, I don't know their past, maybe they were abused, maybe, whatever, and this is how they've learned to express themselves. And that's a big issue with twice exceptionality, is that I'm performing all the things you ask of me. I'm making good grades, I'm answering questions in class or whatever, but under the surface, as you said, things could be bubbling up and eventually become behavioral issues, because they're just concerned with the numbers. And that's some insights I got from some of my classmates. One of them, she used to work in the school system, but she got out because of how incredibly corrupt it is. So the more I've talked to these people and realized, oh, I can kind of let loose here, it's cool, I started talking about issues I had with school and how corrupt the administrations are. And I'll tell a story.
Okay.
When I was in, what would this be, high school, probably, I don't know what grade, early high school, I had a teacher that was notorious for giving after school suspension or detention or whatever for minor things, like forgetting your homework one time. So of course I eventually forgot my homework, right?
Yeah.
So that was my first after school detention ever. Like, I had a clean record, right? And so I was sentenced to scraping gum off of the bottom of desks after school. Sure, whatever. I just did it and didn't think anything of it. The principal came in, and I was like, why is he visiting us? Maybe he's coming to give us a pep talk. Here's your, we have an opportunity to do better, blah, blah. No, he belittled and demeaned us.
I remember the story.
I can't remember the exact words he used, but it was something along the lines of, oh, look, these people where they belong, or something. I was shocked. I was like,
And you're the head teacher, why?
Yeah, this guy is the guy that runs the school, and you talk this way about your students? Like, what? And that was an eye-opening experience for me, for sure.
Yeah.
And from a lot of the people I've talked to, that's kind of the norm. And one thing I said in class or in the discussion online or something, I was like, think about the kind of people that position might attract, that you are in power over a bunch of small children or younger people
Who don't have the capacity to fight back.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of person would that attract? And we can extrapolate that out to politics, but I don't think we'll do that right now.
That's a bad idea.
And the people in the class agreed to him. Is like, yeah, a lot of the leadership in schools are like awful people.
Yeah.
Obviously, not all of them. I know some people are going to get offended. Not all of them, but there's
Just most of them.
There's a high chance.
Yeah.
There's a very high chance. And I forget how I got onto this tangent, but I don't know.
You were talking about the
school performance.
yes.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know how this is even possible, but I think teachers and faculty really need to think more about just grades. Because when I was through school, that's all that matters. And I think we discussed earlier, like, you can get perfect grades and still not make it.
Oh, yeah.
Society. Because contrary to popular belief, if you have a 4.0 GPA, that doesn't mean you're gonna go places, kid.
No.
That's the expectation. And I feel like, all three of us are kind of proof that that's not really.
Yeah.
that's not really how it works. There's more to it than being able to regurgitate
rhetoric and facts.
Yeah,
I
rhetoric
guess
and
it's
facts.
something we're obsessed with.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is basically how the modern education system is laid out. It's not.
Mhm.
It's not designed to promote critical thinking skills and actually understanding the
Mhm.
material. It's simply there to make sure you memorize it.
Right.
And simply
and-
memorizing something doesn't mean you'll have any idea what to do with it.
Exactly. And in my case, the way my memory works is it's like multiple choice questions. I did very well on because I would forget the answer, but then it would be right there. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Whereas fill in the blank stuff, I did
Oh,
terribly
God.
because I could not recall the answer. I would need it sitting in front of me and like saying, oh yeah, that's the one. Like a reminder. Right? So all throughout school, it was all multiple choice stuff. So I did really well.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's like the answer is literally right there in front of me. And I don't know, it's so goofy how stuff is run. I feel like I feel like we can do better. But will we?
Depends on how you're qualifying better.
Right. And that's where it gets complicated into the weeds. Another interesting question it asked is how might Davis's mother's mental health status impact treatment success?
Well, this doesn't really go too much into detail about the relationship between Davis and his parents outside of the physical violence perpetrated
doesn't.
by Davis himself.
Right.
It doesn't
And-
say whether or not. I mean, obviously, due to the fact that they went and took legal action on Davis's behalf, they're not absentee parents.
Right.
However, it doesn't qualify. Well, how have they been dealing with Davis's autism up until this point? Do they
Right.
have a history of being unable to properly deal with it? Do they understand it to the point where they can handle it to a degree by themselves, or do they need this outside force to?
It sounds like from reading the case that they did need more professional voices stepping in and telling them, this is how it works, right? And the question specifically is about how her mental health status might impact the success of the kid, his treatments. The follow-up question is, what are the barriers to addressing parental mental health as a child treatment provider? And we had some fun discussions on that because we had, providers there in class, people that were actively in practice. And that's a really, really tough situation to be in because if your client is the kid, you're
gonna be like more biased.
Yeah, you're gonna be more biased.
You can't properly separate yourself from the scenario.
Mm-hmm. And you can't really address the parental mental health issue because they're not your client. That's not your position to do it, and it puts you in a very odd, awkward spot. Because if you are a treatment provider, most likely you're able to help adults as well as kids. The same thing as help adults as kids. Okay, I need to put that out there because if it's helpful for a kid, it's going to be helpful.
Yeah.
Granted, you might need to tailor it differently from child to adult, but
Right.
it's going to help.
The basic concepts.
The principle remains the same.
Right. And but because it gets into such complicated territory, I honestly didn't understand a lot of the discussion going on. And there's the whole social aspect of parents are there to get their kid help, and then if the provider starts trying to help them as well, that could cause all sorts of nasty trouble. And you don't want the parents to leave the practice, not just because you're getting money from them, hopefully, also because you're helping the kid out.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, sure, some providers just care about the money, but let's, try to stay positive here. Some actually do care about their clients. And
I mean, you would hope that they would get into the field expressly because they want to help people.
You'd be surprised. No,
That's
you
why I
wouldn't.
said you
expect it.
would hope.
Yeah. And that's a really difficult spot to be put in, because if you offend the parents, they may leave your care, and then you don't know where they might take the kid to next, if anywhere. So there's a lot of barriers there, and this stuff gets so complicated. And that's why we need self-advocates like us, people that can talk about what they need and be able to speak truth and all that.
Yeah.
And that's why we do this. So let me switch back to the outline here. So let's try to wrap it up here. I probably want to give a little spiel about.
A good word, spiel.
It is. It needs to be used more. I'm spieling here. Wrap up, I guess. We kind of already went over all this. We did a pretty good job going over the outline, despite me not using the outline for majority.
I mean, we did better than last time.
For sure.
Progress was made.
I just want to say, like, I've been doing a lot of I don't know what you'd call it, soul searching. I've been doing a lot of thinking this past year.
You find any spare souls?
Not yet.
I need some for my collection.
Just my dirty soul.
The soul furnace.
But I've always been very judgmental in a lot of ways, and I'm trying to correct that, and there's certain people in my life that are helping me correct that, whether they know that or not. And it's very easy to be judgmental, because all we see is the here and now, especially people you don't interact with that often. You see what's happening right now, and you see their outward expressions currently, but you don't know what they've been through. You don't know. There's always an explanation for why people are the way they are.
Yeah.
And I think with that in particular, I'm not sure how it is for you two, but I find that, at least from my experience, people with autism tend to be more in the here and now people. They don't focus as things on the broader spectrum. It's
Yeah.
very specific.
For sure. And that makes it a little more difficult, I feel like, to relate to other people, because you are very much stuck in the right now. And our past do affect us still. We just don't think about it. It's just kind of an automatic thing, speaking for myself at least. And I don't know, I feel like we as a society and culture really need to start giving more grace to people. Now, saying that, I need to clarify, I don't mean just letting people do whatever they want.
You still need to hold people accountable for their actions.
You still need accountability. You still need boundaries. But just that little bit of understanding, like if someone cuts you off in traffic, or gives you the finger, or yells at you, or whatever,
They might be a
Thinker.
or they might be having a terrible
well,
day.
it could be both, and most likely, from my experience, they're hurting. They're hurt. In some way, they are miserable people, and that's how it expresses itself outwardly, is through some sort of aggression or whatever. And I mean, I've started to take more pity on people like that instead of being angry at them, because I mean, it's just such an awful way to go through life.
It really is.
Always angry, always bitter.
I'm feeling attacked right now.
I was thinking that, but I didn't want to say anything. But yeah, we all have our baggage,
Oh yeah.
And one thing you can really take away from this case is that people that are in power don't tend to see the problems that are going on.
They don't see the little people like us.
Nope. And that's an unfortunate thing, especially in the school system. I was talking to some of the people in the class that were actually in the school system for a while, and they said a lot of decisions are just made based on spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how many incidents did this person have this semester? right? Or just numbers, and that's it. There's no notes that they have to read through to be like, okay, get some nuance. No, it's all numbers.
Yep.
Have either of you heard of a series called Duckman?
Yes, I used to watch it. It came on USA late at night, 10 p.m.
Duckman.
Yeah,
It was an adult comedy show from the 90s, I think it was?
Yes,
yeah,
it was
94 to
not-
97.
yes.
And there was
haven't seen
episodes
it.
where the titular character, Duckman, becomes a movie producer. And the line he says is, "This is an industry based on perception rather than fact, run by businessmen who only understand numbers and haven't an idea of what's good and what isn't." And while that's expressly talking about Hollywood and creating movies, I think it does apply in a broader spectrum to other things like the education system.
Oh,
They're not
100%.
looking at the
Yeah.
individual cases, they're not looking at what is good for this situation, they're looking at the numbers and they're extrapolating what they should think from that rather than actually looking at what they need to.
Mm-hmm. They're not seeing the forest for the trees. I think
Yeah.
I'm using that correctly, because you can get so caught up in the external and surface level stuff, and the way our society is run, we're encouraged to just stick to external and surface level stuff because that's what sells, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes businesses money. So they have kind of molded society to encourage that sort of behavior, and I feel like that's where a lot of our problems are lying in. Like, I don't think this is getting too political. We're very divided in our society. It's become very tribalized.
Yeah.
People tend nowadays to form their opinion more, I'm against those people, so whatever they like, I don't like, versus actually looking at,
People just like viewed as like sports teams, basically.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
it's got to be like that, but worse. It's like, oh, these people on the other side, well, there's absolutely nothing redeemable about them, so
Yeah.
anything they like, I have to hate.
yeah, this is my team, so I'm gonna vote for this team and not look at their policies or
Right.
what they stand for. I'm just gonna go this way because I always have.
Mm-hmm. And it's just unfortunate, I think, because
Yeah.
we're capable of so much more as a society to just look past like, people don't form their opinions anymore based on the reality at all.
Yeah.
You can throw numbers and statistics at people all day, it doesn't matter. You can put the reality right in front of their face, they won't care. They'll be like, well, those guys like it,
Oh,
so I don't.
by the way, this is like related to a topic we were on earlier. I purposely didn't say very much. It's fine to include this, but my father worked in the education system for like 15, almost 20 years, and the education system, especially the higher ups, are extremely, very, very corrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's just, I can't say anything specifically, but I used to hear horrible stuff about, I can't say who because it's easy to date me and see who I'm talking about, but yeah,
Right.
who was who back then when I was in school.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. But I mean, I heard the same thing from a lot of the people I was talking to in class. Like the one girl that was in my group, we switched groups around. So when I say was in my
Yeah.
group, she's still in the class. Just we swapped groups.
This is one thing I think I'm going to step on some feet when I say this about public school, but I'm not scared to say it because this was how it was when I went. Stuff might be different now, but I feel like the biggest focus when I was in high school was sports. Actually, the extracurricular is fine. I think it's good, exercise and teammanship, whatever, but there was just overtook everything. I don't know how high schools are where you went, but that's
It's
just
the same.
I feel like a lot of the resources really just go toward that, and that's really not good.
I mean, the problem is the overemphasis, right?
Yeah, that's it.
There needs to be a balance. I remember it was that way when I was in school. I've never been a sports ball person.
Yeah, well, I was forced to play football, but that was about it.
Well, that's because you're the size of a truck, my friend.
Lineman, yeah.
He is a truck.
They realized they could really use you on the team. I had people try to recruit me to teams too. I was like, I have no interest in that. Go away. Put me back in my computer, please. I want to do nerd things.
Yeah.
It doesn't help that usually the people that would be on the sports teams are also the kind of people that would stereotypically make life more difficult for people like us.
You're
Oh, yeah,
right.
for sure.
Like
For sure.
when I had a lot of different experiences playing sports. I had some really good coaches, but I also had some really bad ones that were like what you described.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
And it's funny, I almost got into wrestling because, of course, I love the WWF, now called the WWE. And I thought that's what, of course, I was young and stupid. I thought that's what it was. I was like, ooh, I'm going to have a signature move. I'm going to choose my entry music. And then I realized it was like Olympic style wrestling. And I was like, that's kind of
Aggressively hugging people.
Yeah.
the Bancho
Oh.
break, the Bancho backbreaker.
That's my signature move. The Bancho breaker.
And its motion is like a full circle, 360 circle, and a strong kick.
The band chop.
Band chop. But yeah, the guy that
The
was
band
like
choke.
band choke, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one, band choke. The guy that was talking to us, trying to recruit us for the thing, he was like way too like, I think the modern term would be toxically masculine,
Yeah.
and
No, I know what you mean.
it's totally turned me off. Like, I was like, okay, dude, this is unnecessary. We're playing a friggin'
False
game.
bravado.
Yeah, false bravado.
That's a good word for it.
And it's like, there's no reason to be
Compensating.
like, which compensating.
That's exact. I think the
Like,
word.
we're playing a
Yeah.
game here, dude. Like, chill.
That's just.
And that
Yeah.
turned me off from ever getting into sports.
I failed to live out my football career, so now I'm going to vicariously force you to live it out in my place.
Right.
That is so true for so many people into high school sports. It's parents and coaches truly like living the lives they wanted through their kids. Instead
and
of
that's so damaging.
that really is.
In so many ways. I mean, so many studies have been done on that. Like,
And I'm not attacking sports or anything. I don't want people to assume like I've
Right.
never like really been one to. Sometimes I'll watch an occasional football game with my dad, but I've never been a huge sports ball person. But I enjoyed a lot of my time playing sports, even though I wasn't crazy about it in high school. But I did have fun in middle school. But I don't want to make it seem like, oh, he's harping on sports because he's autistic and a nerd. It's not like that.
well, maybe, I mean, you know what? I'm okay saying that. So
Yeah.
if you don't want to, I will.
Yeah.
Sports are dumb.
Yeah.
Obviously
Hang on.
being facetious here, y'all. If you like sports, cool. Just don't make it your entire personality, please.
I mean, don't make any singular thing your personality.
Right. I feel like that's where a lot of us have gone wrong.
Don't make sports your personality. In our case, don't make autism your personality. Don't make your
Right.
sexuality your
Yeah.
personality.
Right.
Be a fulfilled, three-dimensional person.
Don't be a Mary Sue IRL.
I'm a Mary Sue IRL. I have dragon wings and a unicorn horn. And I
And
have,
Spock is your brother.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I can power up to Super Saiyan God level 8, and I have a goatee when I transform, and it's 7 feet long, and I
No, 7 feet tall. The goatee goes up.
Oh, what if it goes both ways, horizontal and vertical? And I'm extremely. I can destroy universes, like Gurren Lagann, whatever.
But you choose not to because you're just that cool.
Yeah.
Gurren Lagann became bigger than the universe and
Yeah.
went through it.
Yeah,
Wow.
I need to rewatch that show.
I've never actually watched
It's
it.
great.
It's fantastic. I didn't particularly
know.
like the latter half. Not, I mean, I liked the latter half. I didn't like the ending. I think is better to say.
Yeah,
Fair.
The ending is
A lot of things are for
contentious.
me.
yeah.
I think the worst ending I ever experienced was Shadow of Mordor. Is that the one?
I still
The
haven't
first-
played that game. I have it on my backlog.
Do you mean in how it was so anticlimactic?
Yes.
Like you went from one actual boss battle to a QTE to a glorified cutscene.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was. I hate that game now, which sucks because the whole
It's
rest
a
of
really
the
good game.
the whole rest of the game is amazing. Like seriously. But
Well-
then that last boss, it's like, you know, you got all this build up, like, ooh yeah, I'm gonna fight the big bad, right? QTE. Here's a few buttons. You did it. Yay. Like what? No, I want to fight.
I wanted to stab him.
Yeah. So I feel like I didn't earn this, you know.
I practiced all these different stabbing techniques. Now you're not letting me use them.
Yeah. I've got the reverse flip side stabbity stab and the corkscrew stab and
The Super Stabber Supreme.
yeah. And I didn't get to use any of them.
Hmm.
Yeah, I hate that game now. I never even got the sequel because I was like, you know
I
what?
heard the sequel one.
So
was
the
good?
sequel,
Yeah.
story-wise, objectively worse. Gameplay-wise, really good.
Right.
It just, unfortunately, is tied to an abysmal story.
Well, let's be fair. I didn't really play those games for the story. I wanted to beat up orcs. You know.
The problem is when you have a game like that where the story is so heavily tied into the gameplay, it's
Yeah.
difficult to separate them.
Yeah. I just wanted to find the weirdest orcs and put them in my army, you know. The autistic orc army.
Autistic.
Orcistic.
You know what? Speaking of Lord of the Rings, you know what game I wish would come to Steam that never will?
Hmm.
Is it
Battle-
that one that was basically Battlefront 2 but Lord of the Rings?
Yes. You knew I
That's
was going to
not
say
cool.
that.
Because it was a
from-
fantastic game, even though I can't remember the name of it.
It's Battle for Middle Earth.
That's what it was. But yeah, that was
Don't
great.
think I ever played it.
It was great.
Like I said, it's quite literally, it's Star Wars Battlefront 2,
Right.
the OG Battlefront 2 from 2007?
See, how do you do that?
Was it 2007 or was it 2005?
Closer than I could ever guess. I don't know.
God, I wish it would go up on GOG, but due to EA, it freaking won't.
No, we're getting into nerd crap now.
Yeah.
People have
Well,
tuned
that's
out.
what.
So I was
what they
just thinking, is
paid
this
for.
going in the episode or are
Yes.
we just... Yeah, sure.
This is what people came for.
This is really what people come for. They want the tangents.
2005. I was right the second time, not the first.
Yeah.
How do you do it? I don't know. I've gone
It
over
was
this.
going to be
multiple
2007 or it was going to be 2005. It was going to be one of those two.
When I was applying for SSDI, one of the biggest difficulties I had was they kept asking like date-related questions, and I kept having to tell them I don't do dates.
I'm good.
I don't
with
do
dates.
time. I could give you a ballpark.
Hey, let me phone up Lyric, see if he knows.
Yeah, I mean you'd have a better shot at remembering my past than I would. But they'd be like, you know, at what date did you do this job? I'm like, I can tell you it was before this job and after this one, but what year that was, I can't tell you. Like, there has to be something very significant that happens that year for me to tie it to and be like, oh yeah, like, you know, 2020 COVID. Like, I can tie things to that.
Hey,
But
COVID!
I
That was
tried
it.
things to when games came out.
Of
Oh,
course.
that's the year Elden Ring. They announced the DLC that's never coming out.
It's
Yeah.
coming out.
No, it's
Hey,
not.
the podcast you might be right. The podcast might come out before the Elden Ring DLC.
Oh, it will. There's nothing. It ain't coming out for another 2 years.
Good gracious.
I'm
Why would they
assuming
wait so long?
Because
It better be friggin' epic.
I mean, from what I understand, FromSoft DLC is usually in the same realms as like Monster Hunter DLC, where they're basically adding another extra game on top of your game.
Pretty much.
yeah, the DLC, all the DLC that I've played, it's good to extremely good and extremely hard.
Yeah, it's usually worth it. A lot of DLC from a lot of companies, I don't bother with.
Yeah, just a rule of thumb. The reason why I'm re-rolling the character is because my first one I beat the game with had a lot of magic. Usually, they nerf magic or heavily raise magic resistance in the DLC for their games.
Okay, so you're making a new one just for the DLC, basically.
Just they might not do that here, but that's just a FYI. They did it Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3. Manus in Dark Souls 1 was like near impossible for magic build, but
I feel like there's some bigger emphasis on magic in Elden Ring than Dark Souls, so they'll probably add more magic resistance, but they won't add so much to completely make magic impotent.
Yeah, Elden Ring's dope. I really need to finish it.
You do.
The
My
last
problem is
How? No. I will bring this up again. How is it that I was the least interested in the game, and I was the first to finish it?
Dude, I always, when I play these games, I restart like 15 times.
15? Mate, you're missing out about 20.
Well, hey,
You restarted that game. I think at your worst point, you restarted it 4 times in a single day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, wait, I wanted to use this weapon and my stats aren't quite right, so I need to redo it.
I'm working on a character now, and I restarted like twice. But to be fair, I screwed up.
There is no fairness with you, Dan, when it comes to restarting in Elden Ring or Dark Souls or whatever.
Anything's on the table.
You have lost all benefit of the doubt.
Now, I've been good about Monster Hunter. I didn't restart it either.
That's because there's no point in restarting in Monster Hunter.
Not.
You can just go, oh, I don't want to use this weapon anymore.
Yeah,
and
if
then just immediately go and change to a different weapon.
Yeah, and if I don't like my name or how I look, I can either buy a voucher or hack the game and change my appearance. I did that.
Or you can deal with it.
I did that in Rise. I didn't like my name, so I used like I don't know if it was Cheat Engine or something. I changed my name.
Well, no, 'cause you get one free reroll voucher, don't you?
Yep, that's one thing I've always loved about Monster Hunter is I can do everything with one character.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah,
too.
that's me too. I can't wait to try that game at 1600 by 1200. Oh boy.
How much of this is going in the episode?
We're probably going to cut it here.
Yeah, probably.
All right, that's enough tangents for now. Thanks for listening, and please come back. Hopefully next time we won't take 3.5 or so years to put out another episode.
We'll take 4.
I'll be a skeleton. We'll be propped up in a chair, and all 3 of us will be here for the recording. And
it'll be great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening.